think I'm gonna bother with the last few platinums. I think I need to avoid that for my own sanity. And at the time, that was the plan. However, literally the very next day, I started thinking to myself, I got the Platinum Relic in Stormy Ascent, which multiple people have said is one of, if not the hardest challenge throughout the doggone series, which I was not expecting. I mean, honestly, there are some relics in Warped that I think might end up being harder to get at that level. But it's definitely the hardest one for Crash 1. So if I can get that, surely I can get the rest, right? Well, I decided to give it a try. What I ended up doing was I decided that I would try and get the Platinum Relic for the lab specifically and use that as a benchmark. And if I could get the Platinum there, then surely the rest wouldn't be nearly as bad. So here is my run of the lab. I'll be honest, out of all of the remaining 6 relics I went back for, this one was definitely the hardest, but once again, there's repeating, it's the most fun. And I think it honestly comes down to this. Like, is it a very hard relic to get? Yes, it's very, very hard to get a decent relic on this. But that's the key word. It's hard to get a decent relic. The stages that I had the most frustrating times with, you know, Sunset Vista, Stormy Ascent, Fumbling in the Dark, I got a Platinum Relic my first try on all of those. And when I say my first try, I mean my first completed try, the first one where I didn't die. And I think that that's the key difference, you know? Yeah, I'm gonna die a lot on the lab. I mean, heck, I kid you not, I actually went back and counted this rerun of the stage. Not the first one when I got that first gold relic. This rerun took me 123 tries to get right. But it was not nearly, not even a fraction as exhausting as any of the others. But yeah, a relatively straightforward stage. The big key to this stage in particular is starting at the right time so that the gates are correct. If you can pull that off, it's all just a matter of execution from there. After that, I figured that I might as well go backwards from there. So that would put the next stage on the list as Slippery Climb. Now, again, I must say, this was one day after I had done with the Stormy Ascent recording. And like I said before, it was well over 6 hours of time spent doing one thing, rushing through that stage. And yeah, it's a different stage, it's a different layout, but mechanically, it's using a lot of the same tricks. You know, the rotating platforms, the fast in and out platforms, the changing stairs, the spikes, the birds, all that stuff. It's all here. So I'm already very familiar with how the mechanics works and a lot more comfortable working around them. And it basically just came to a matter of learning the timing in certain specific spots, like, mainly with the disappearing platforms. Like, if this will tell you anything, going through the lab took me a little over 2 hours to get that Platinum Relic. This took me about 30 minutes. Like, this was absolutely nothing. I'll be honest, I think this might be one of the easiest ones I had out of the remaining ones. Explicitly because of my recent agony going through Stormy Ascent. But, yeah. The main issue I had with this stage in particular is that, similar to Stormy Ascent, it's a pretty big level. Not as big, thank goodness, but that's kind of what makes this one and like a couple of the other ones later a bit trickier to deal with. But thankfully, unlike something like the lab, this one doesn't really have any like wonky timing start gimmicks to it. Heck, Stormy Ascent had that too, where you had to make sure you were starting at the right time. And I honestly don't know how I feel about that, because it's another thing that's inconsistent, you know? Like, the reason you have to get the timing right in the lab is because all of the electric gates, not just the one at the beginning, all of them will have their timing affected by when you start. Because they're all, it's basically as if they're all active and firing at the same time right out the gate. But for the platforms here, it doesn't feel like that's the case. And with Stormy Ascent even, it kinda didn't feel like that at certain points, but it did at others. I don't know, it was really weird. But the point is, while the stage is tricky, it is super consistent in my experience. Especially compared to something like Stormy Ascent. And thank goodness it also, to my knowledge anyway, doesn't bug out like Stormy Ascent. So yeah, relatively straightforward platinum at the end of the day. So after that, the next stage I went to was Generator Room. And funny enough, this one was definitely the fastest one. I definitely had more tries here than I did at Slippery Climb, but it took me half the time. I got this in like 15 minutes of trying, which I was not expecting, because, I don't know, I was nervous about this one, but it turned out to be relatively straightforward. And while there is a little bit of timing shenaniganery with it, with these platforms in particular, I don't know, it kind of just felt like if you were to... I think that the difference is, unlike stuff like the Lab and Sunset Vista, you don't have to wait. If you literally just go for it out the gate, the timing will be correct as long as you don't, like, slip. The only thing that's truly tricky is having to do stuff like this. You know, like jumping off of the platforms while they're still moving, skipping stuff. That's the only tricky part, mainly because at the end you kinda can't do anything to speed it up. And that's really all there is to it. You know, it's like if you get to this platform at the 40-second mark, you're basically golden. And heck, you get 2 Aku Aku masks to help you screw up, you know, to help you in case you screw up. I obviously screwed up and lost one of those hits, but I still have the other one just fine. Like once you get used to what, you know, you're expected to do to get that time, it's actually pretty simple. After this, the next stage to go through was Heavy Machinery, the first of the, like, laboratory levels that we went to. And this one gave me trouble in a couple of specific spots. That right there, jumping straight from behind the burning pipe onto that bounce crate, that to me was deemed essential, because if you get that right, then everything else for this beginning sprint is timed perfectly. Like, everything is placed in a way that you can either jump through or past, or, you know, it makes it a lot easier to get to this point. Now, losing that mask there is actually something that, when I did this run in particular, I was worried about, and like, I kind of hesitated there, because these vents right here, they were the things that gave me the most trouble. Which is fitting, because Castle Machinery, I'm pretty sure it was the vents there that were giving me the most trouble too. And that vent in particular, right by that platform, that's usually where I would try to sacrifice the mask, either that or here. But no, instead, I'm forced into waiting. And I even don't get advantage of my mask there. The other big key here is there. That was the second time we had to, you know, fall down and skip a moving platform. Again, pretty essential. Like, it's interesting. This one has a lot of things that it's like, you know, yeah, gotta do it a very specific way, or you're not gonna get it. But they're relatively straightforward and simple things for the most part. And come to think of it, if I didn't mess up and lose those masks, and I didn't hesitate in that one little tunnel, then some of those things might not have been necessary at all. So, I guess now that I'm thinking about it in hindsight, there's a lot of wiggle room. About the only other majorly important thing is to make sure you take the correct paths on these bounce pads and don't, you know, miss it. Like, this one definitely required a little bit more memorization than some of the others, I think. But, again, I honestly kind of enjoyed it. I don't know, there's something about the flow of that stage that I really like. Now, up next, we're going all the way back from the third island to the first, because it's time for Native Fortress. Now, out of all of the remaining ones, barring the Lab, this is the one that I was the most scared of because of its length, combined with all of the obstacles that would need to be timed correctly, like, you know, spikes with flames and such, and all that such. I had tried so many times on my first run through to get that gold relic and I could never figure out how to get the timings right. And apparently I'm not alone in that sentiment, because when I watched other people doing it as well, it was, it was apparently a consensus that this one is also among some of the harder stages to platinum. Which one wouldn't expect at the outset. Funnily enough, though, despite the fact that my first time going through this, it took me quite a while to get to even a gold time, and I was just like, nope, I can't do that. Can't get that platinum. This one took me like 20 minutes. I don't know if I just got extremely lucky or what, because obviously I'm still able to make mistakes like right there, but on top of that, it's, how do I say this? I don't know. I didn't figure out anything new with the timing or anything like that. I didn't learn anything that I didn't already know, so I either just got extremely lucky, it's just a matter of execution that I've improved upon since the Stormy Ascent madness. There might be some trauma there now. Or some combination of the two, I don't know. All I know is I'm glad it didn't take a million years. And it's like, even now in editing, I have no idea how some of the timings of stuff at the beginning is supposed to, like, sync up. Like, obviously some of the stuff near the end here, I don't think there's much you can really do to control it. Although, this right here, that is like the big thing that I did not know I could do, and was helped by, checking someone else's run. Like, I've said it before, if I was gonna go back and do these platinums, I was gonna do that. And it made a difference. Although at the same time, not so big a difference that I can't accidentally go the wrong way at the end and still get it. So yeah, it's a lot less tight than I was afraid it was gonna be and thought of at the time. But with that, we now move on, last but not least, to the first level, Insanity Beach. And I'm actually gonna be showing off my first run of this too, up to a point, for a very specific reason. Now, I never knew about this, and obviously I'm doing all of the recording for these in post. Okay, so it's actually gonna be my second run of this. I could edit that out, but I choose not to. I had no idea about this, but apparently, if you get 100% save file, which obviously we're well over that at this point, and you go back to certain stages, you get a little cameo. And there he is! Look at him doing his dance! Wait for him. He's gonna turn around. We'll see his face in a minute. You have no idea how much I wish I was actually recording my audio live during this, because I was dumbfounded. There is his face. That right there is an entity known simply as Fake Crash. I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty sure that he is basically based off of a bootleg that was sold of him back in like the original PlayStation days. Like, I don't remember if it was a Japanese or a Chinese bootleg, but it was a bootleg nonetheless. And they decided to make him a recurring quote-unquote character. And they put him in a few stages in the background in the Insane trilogy, which is hilarious. Like, apparently, I actually looked into this after I recorded the edited segment for Heavy Machinery, but before this one. Apparently he could be in Heavy Machinery too, and I just couldn't see him. But yeah, he's just there now. He lives here. Anyways, let's skip to the Platinum run, shall we? Now, I'm being completely honest. This thing only took me about 20 minutes as well. But if the lab wasn't on here, this would definitely be the single most frustrating relic I got out of this 6-pack here. And it's because, oh my lord, the timings for everything is so pinpoint perfect that there is next to zero wiggle room. You definitely need to hit all of the crates and like use them to bounce up of the ledges there. You have to get Invincible Accu at about the 12-second mark. Otherwise, you're not gonna be able to make it. I don't know if this actually does anything, but I swear sometimes it feels like spinning makes you go a little bit faster. You need to hit this crate at about the 21-second mark. And if you get the time frozen at 23:45 like that, you barely get it. And even now, watching back, I have no doggone idea, aside from like those couple of crate bounces, where my differences were between them. And trust me, I had multiple fails where I did those crate bounces and still missed it by like a fraction of a second. Like, look at how close those times were. 25.9 was my second best score I got. I don't know. I think they went a little hard on that one. Anyways, that's enough about the platinum relics. Let's return back to live and beat up Cortex, shall we? So let's close this out with something easy, like the final boss, Dr. Cortex. I have been through the nightmare. You don't scare me. We fight him atop his mighty blimp. He's mad at us. And his island is on fire for some reason. All right, I remember. So he shoots us 1, 2, 3. We have to hit the green one. Rinse and repeat with different patterns, as I recall. Oh, right. He said now he'll shoot blue ones that, like, linger. Zap! I got zapped by Dr. Cortex.
Darn you, Crash Bandicoot.
I don't know if he said darn you, Crash Bandicoot, or die you, Crash Bandicoot, and I hope it was the latter, because I'm sure that's what he wants us to do. In all seriousness, I do remember his fight being a little bit tricky because of these blue orbs. Yeah. Oh, right, and now every time we hit him, we gotta hit more of them in order to generate like a super orb. Ah, nice try. I don't. Oh, geez, they're going in sine waves and cosine waves. Oh, don't! I forgot to spin. Ugh, whatever.
Darn you, Crash Bandicoot.
Wait, I got hit. Okay.
Darn you, Crash Bandicoot.
Okay, that time I could very clearly hear darn. Well, darn. I wanted you to tell me to die.
Darn you, Crash Bandicoot.
In all seriousness, why is your island on fire, dude? Like, we didn't do that. We cleared the entire thing and went through the final hall. And all we did when we did there and got the good ending was, you know, jump on a bird with Tawna and then skedaddle. And as we were, the island wasn't on fire. This implies that whatever it is that caused it to be on fire was somewhere between the hall and here.
Darn you, Crash Bandicoot.
And it wasn't Stormy Ascent, I'll tell you that much right now. That place had no fire anywhere. It was all rain and pain. And yet now I'm sitting here fighting the final boss, dying multiple times over, and I feel a sense of peace. That is just inexplicable to me. I think it is strictly just the knowledge that I got a relic for Stormy Ascent. Like, the platinum relic is obviously fantastic. I'm glad I got that specifically. But just getting any relic is an ordeal there because you have to go through the entire thing without dying from the start. Uh-oh. Ah, man. Okay, that's annoying. Hey, Aku, I'm glad you're here. Mind helping me kill this stupid scientist? Or at least knock him off his hoverboard? That's it. Whoa! Well, so much for that. Now I gotta go through this whole song and dance again. Can I try again? Thank you, sir. Alright, here's our first orb. Middle seems to be safe for all of these. Ah, I spun too soon. Oh well. Maybe this time I won't lose Aku Aku like a dum-dum.
Darn you, Crash Bandicoot!
Yeah. How do you even get your hair to do that, sir? Don't even get me started on your head. Like, is that your head? Is that a hat? Is that a full face mask? Is that a fake head? These are the real questions. Are you even human? What species are you, Dr. Cortex? I don't know any human whose head is shaped like that. And if your head is shaped like that because of your brain being big, well, then there's other problems because brains aren't shaped like that either. Maybe that's why your hair is shaped that way. Your brain's so big it's oozing out your ears. You know, you're also kind of psychotic and crazy. I believe that. All right, time for the rapid fire. Aha! It's actually pretty easy to deal with. You know it's coming. Oh, you only needed 2 that time. Okay. What's your final pattern? What? Oh, your final pattern is just that. Bye-bye! And there's the canon ending. Cortex is knocked into the ocean, we steal his blimp and burn his house. This is a fantastic game. I will say, it is a very fantastic game. Definitely better than its original release because I think like the controls are different and obviously the whole method of getting gems, allowing you checkpoints is way better. But, you know, those are like the only changes aside from the aesthetics. That and, of course, the presence of the time trials. So it's like taking all of that away, you're still left with a great time. That also very much feels like a, you know, a bit of a rough draft when you compare it to the later games in the series, because, oh boy, this is definitely the worst of the trilogy by a large margin, and this is still like, you know, 7 out of 10, I'd say. I don't know, maybe I ought to give it a higher number in my head if I wasn't still sore from Stormy Ascent. Genuinely have no idea why they did put in the time trials. Like, it's interesting because, like, that was a staple ever since Crash Warped. But adding them to a game that was designed without them in mind, and that is already notorious for being kind of difficult. Interesting decision, I'll say the least. Then again, I did get, like, all but 6 of them with platinum time, so who knows? I still can't get my head around some of their some of the relics and stuff like that, and just like, I'm sorry, I'm stuck on the relics, but that's like how I got to know these stages the most. And I think the funny thing is, like, only 3 of them genuinely frustrated me, like, seriously frustrated me. The lab definitely gave me some trouble, but like I said when I, you know, started up the next one after that, I was still able to look at it and say I enjoyed my time for the most part. But there are 3 stages where that wasn't the case. And that's Fumbling in the Dark, Sunset Vista, and Stormy Doggone Ascent. The crazy thing is, when I was taking some of my breaks, I did spend a little bit of time looking at some of the Stormy Ascent stuff to, like, figure out anything to do with this inconsistency or, like, the glitches and things like that that I was encountering. And while I couldn't find any sort of consensus on some of that stuff, about the one consensus I did see overwhelmingly is that getting that relic, a lot of people agree, is the single hardest individual challenge across the main series. And that apparently includes Crash 4, which I have not played, but is notorious, I am aware, for being absurdly difficult to complete. Ugh. But honestly, if I were to take out just those 3 time trials, I would say that it was a very enjoyable experience overall. And while I am definitely looking very forward to tackling Crash 2, it's gonna need to wait. I think I need something maybe a little less intensive on my hands. Super special shout out to all original Crash Bandicoot team members who contributed to the original 3 games. Heck yeah! When you make a remake or a remaster or something, show love to the original creators, because they deserve love. They deserve the love too. I don't know how much longer these credits are, but I've kind of run out of things to say. Ah, interesting though. For a while it was playing music from like Crash 1 only, but now I'm pretty sure this music doesn't appear until Crash Warped. But I know what kind of stage this goes to. So are these the credits for like the entire, I guess these are the credits for the entire Insane trilogy. Which I guess makes sense, considering, you know, the same overall team worked on all 3 games, both original and remake. Although, who knows? I don't know if Naughty Dog changed any hands when they developed the original or not. Like the original trilogy, rather, like between games. Although, if I recall right, the gap between the original games was relatively small. Which is honestly pretty impressive, considering the leap in quality between each one. And I gotta admit, there's a part of me that is tempted when I do go to Crash 2 and Warp to do the original PlayStation 1 version instead of the Insane trilogy, because like I do own the original discs for those, but while there is a piece of me that I will say okay, look, objectively, the Insane trilogy looks way better than the original PS1s. Objectively, that is a fact. But I think I just prefer the PS1 look. There's something about it, that blocky polygonal style that just works so well that I mean, I miss it. I mean, I know I have talked about that in a long time ago before, and it does bear repeating. It is a style that I sorely miss. But no, I will be sure to be doing it through the Insane trilogy when I do return, because all of them have stuff that's new. You know, like Crash 1 had the relics and Stormy Ascent. Crash 2 also has relics. I don't think it has any new stages though. And Crash Warped has an entirely new stage that they made from the ground up. Plus, I have not played the Insane versions of either. So, there is that. Alright, these credits are seriously getting a bit long. I don't want to skip them in case there's like a post-cut scene that I don't remember, but can I speed them up? I'm just given the option to skip them. No bandicoots were harmed in the creation of this game. No real ones, anyway. Here's their faces. And the credits are over. Should mention, by the way, I glanced away briefly, but I saw at one point, I think there were some dev times for the relics showing up on screen. I'm definitely in editing going to compare those times with what I got, just to see how close I got. If nothing else, for my own sick curiosity. But that is it. 104% completion. Better than 103. I think that's because I got all the gold relics or better. I think that's the difference. I don't know. I think 104 is the highest. If it's not, then it would probably be like 106 with all platinums. That's the only other thing I can think of. And I don't think that's the case because that's not usually the case for Crash Bandicoot. But whatever it is, it's good enough for me. Next time, join me for something that maybe gonna be a little less toxic by the end. Until then, thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.